Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Betterhumanology podcast. Today I'm doing something a little bit different than normal. We're coming up on the end of the year. I kind of want to record some, reflections, lessons learned, things about the Betterhumanology podcast that you may have never heard before, some behind the scenes, some story type stuff, because I'm really starting to think more about this podcast, where we want to actually go in 2019 as opposed to just doing the same thing over and over. And I kind of want to talk about some of that because, and I will announce more about this podcast, like what I want to do with it, because it definitely has a very specific purpose. The main reason I started the Betterhumanology podcast was to kind of study the other side of training, so the mental side, the nutrition side, all the stuff that wasn't really direct programming, because I really love programming and I'm into that stuff all the time. I wanted to explore more the mind, more discipline, motivation, willpower, nutrition, and from all the guests, we've gone down those rabbit holes and more. We have a lot of good tools that we've developed over the years, a lot of very interesting guests and very interesting episodes. I've definitely learned a lot, and that's kind of why I want to do this episode today, because to be honest, the person I was when I started this podcast and the person I am today, now while I am probably still very much the same from a foundational level of being a father, husband, very into training, being a very principled person, things like that, I'm really a completely different person now. A lot of that has to do with my journey down the entrepreneurship rabbit hole and the mindset work I've had to do to be a better entrepreneur, a better leader, and then just kids, having more of that and more kids, up to 3 when I started this podcast. Let's see, Graham was born, but he was very young, so my second, I basically had 1.5 kids. He was really little. Now I have 3. We've moved multiple times since then. So I kind of want to tell you the story and the transformation, all that's happened. Maybe this is more geared towards the people who've been listening for a long time, because we really started this at the beginning of 2015, which is hard to believe. And I kind of want to tell you some behind the scenes. So starting off I left the military in 2014, but I had started Betterhumanology before I left the military. Obviously, Into 3 Fitness was still going, but I had this idea about Betterhumanology just in general. I kind of liked the term and kind of wanted to start exploring, more of more stuff outside of training, because I'd been in training my whole life, and even nutrition. And so it was really crazy what I was doing, the things I was doing to get Betterhumanology off the ground back then. It was its own website. It was betterhumanology.com, and there was no real plan of a podcast. I had thought about it being a podcast, but it was really just a website. And it was a membership website, and it was going to be kind of the membership side of Into 3 Fitness. And I packed that thing full of stuff. Like there was free training programs in there, free nutritional information, all sorts of great stuff that I thought everyone would really enjoy. And I kind of launched Betterhumanology, I think it was towards the end of 2014, and introduced people to it. And a lot of people had been following Into 3 Fitness for a while, were excited about it, but it really kind of pretty much fell flat on its face. And I put a ton of work into building it, all the resources. Like it was probably overwhelming, the amount of free resources I had in there, and it just didn't work out at all. I wasn't real excited about that. It always sucks to kind of work on something for a long time and then it not work. And so I really, to be honest, I thought the Betterhumanology website was the next step from Into 3 Fitness and what the next evolution, should I say. But that was completely wrong. The next evolution of Into 3 Fitness was just building up Into 3 Fitness into an actual company, and then also Garage Gym Athlete was the next step. Because I bought the domain name garagegymathlete.com, many, many years ago. Never acted on it. Didn't think it was going to be a book. Didn't think it was going to be anything. But I just liked the term. Because I started truly training in my garage and was a garage gym athlete 2009, 2010 timeframe. Technically going back to 2009. Really, truly having my own garage in my own home was 2010. And that's around when I bought that domain name. Didn't do anything really until 6 years later, which is kind of crazy. So some of the backstory, I think, going back to Into 3 Fitness, Betterhumanology, why I'm doing this. So like I said, as we start transitioning towards 2019, new projects in the work, growth for Into 3 Fitness, new courses and stuff coming out into 3 Fitness, and new things going on Garage Gym Athlete next year. And one thing I've been toying around with, and I put on my Instagram account, a few days ago, was just like, hey, if I started an entrepreneurship podcast, would you be interested? And just talking about basically a side hustle, because Into 3 Fitness came from a straight side hustle to an actual legitimate business today that has more than one employee and, supports my family. And that was a huge goal of mine. And that was, I didn't ever actually think that was possible. And we've come a long way over the years. But when I started, like I said, Betterhumanology had kind of fallen flat on its face. And then I was like, okay, well, let's do this podcast thing because I still think this is a good idea. And so I started the podcast. And what a lot of people don't know is, I took a job right outside it. Sometimes it may sound like I transitioned straight from the military to Into 3 Fitness. And while I wish that were true, it wasn't 100% true. I took a job doing some website stuff because I had those skills from Into 3 Fitness. I took a job doing that stuff. And it was for my biggest mentor at that time. And, it was a great opportunity. I did that stuff, but it just wasn't fitting. And I was actually recording the first couple of episodes where there are guests on the podcast were actually recorded in my truck. So I would go out on a lunch break, schedule these people, nervous as crap because I never interviewed anybody really before, get in my truck, make sure my truck is close enough to my work building to still get Wi-Fi, which was spotty. Some episodes were never published because the quality was so terrible. Well, anyway, that's the kind of work it started to get Betterhumanology off the ground. I was really, dedicated to doing this stuff. And I remember having lunch with my dad one day, and I'd always talked about Into 3 Fitness being, my main thing because it really started back in 2011. So when I finally got out of the military, Into 3 Fitness had been around for several years. And my dad's like, "Well, what do you really want to do with it?" And I was like, if someone would just let me program, full time, I would be really good at that. And his response was, nobody's going to let you do that. And, his point being maybe you could find a job doing that somewhere, but no one's going to just let you do that full time. You're going to have to create that job for yourself. And that's kind of what I have done over the years. And it's taken a lot of sweat, side hustle, discipline with my time, some sacrifices around the holidays, things like that. It's been really crazy. But the main thing I wanted to accomplish over the years and doing the Betterhumanology podcast and running Into 3 Fitness was for it to be my full-time job. That happened, a couple years ago now, and I wanted just to become better. I've talked about this on the podcast before, is like this idea of being a disciplined machine, and it's so freaking hard to do that. It's so freaking hard to become better and to truly work on the things that you've done. And now we have over 200 episodes of Betterhumanology podcast. It's kind of funny. I've come full circle, coming from this, more programmatic and militant mindset, I would say I had, to being way more open-minded, way more, introduced or interested in meditation and things of the mind, and actually believing in the power of the mind and harnessing things like the placebo effect. I think that I've come a long way in that regard, completely flipped on my end, who I was and where I am now, because to be honest, I wasn't ready to have a business or company when I first got out of the military. There was so much I had to learn. And for me, it was all mental. Like I had a lot of mental hurdles that I needed to get over. But there was just so many people who aren't positive influences in that regard. Like they'll tell you, there are all these stories about why you shouldn't start a business or why you shouldn't do certain things, and some of it's true, but not all of it is. And so that really limited my belief. I had a limiting belief that In It Through Fitness could ever really be a full-time thing. I always focused it on just being a really strong side hustle. That was kind of my goal for it after I thought that it wasn't possible. And then running into life, coming straight out of the military, which was very time demanding, and then, taking a job as soon as I got out, and immediately, 2 kids at that time, new full-time job, trying to get the business going. It just was very, very hard. I had a lot of external things, it was almost impossible. Like, I know, you're talking about trying to juggle fitness with your daily routine. Well, trying to juggle fitness and your family and your job, and then also trying to build a business, which I know some of you are in that category. I've talked with a lot of you and people I have in mind right now. I know you're trying to do those exact same things, and those external struggles are big, but those internal struggles are huge too. Where is your mental state? Do you truly believe in yourself? What kind of limiting beliefs do you have about money, about yourself, about motivation, discipline? Like, what are the internal struggles that you don't know that you have? And I've had a lot of great mentors over the year kind of shatter some of those things. Luckily, or, divine intervention, I don't know what it is, but I would have never been able to, if it wasn't through the interviews I've done on this podcast, through mentorship, business mentorship and everything, I wouldn't be able to get over those internal struggles. And things I'm talking about, guys, I had a lot of issues with, my beliefs about money, earning money, and also, because that goes a long way. That's really deep rooted. I think a lot of people have money issues. Then also just believing in myself. Like, I'm a very confident person, but a lot of that came from like physical stuff, athletic stuff. I'm very confident for those reasons, but I had no confidence in business. I didn't think things were possible. I didn't think it was me. I didn't think it was the person who I could do these things or whatever. And it was actually this podcast that helped me get over most of those things, because I would reach out to people, especially towards the beginning, who were kind of, not mentors, but people I looked up to in the online world or business world, because I was like, you know what, you're doing this full time. And before I would interview them or talk to them, I had this idea in my head that I was like, they're on this pedestal. They're so amazing. I could never be them. I can never do what they do. But now, over 220 interviews, I'm very rarely intimidated by a guest that I have on the podcast, because we're all just people. And it was doing all these interviews that made me realize and broke down a lot of those barriers. I was like, you're just a normal person. You're not necessarily smarter than I am. You're not necessarily more disciplined than I am. You've just worked at it, and now here you are. So that really gave me confidence that I just need to do what I've always kind of been good at, and that is just grind and keep pushing and going, and knowing that no one really has it more figured out than you do. It may seem like that. You might be listening to this thinking that I'm that guy, that I have it more figured out, that I'm more disciplined, that I'm just like on this pedestal, and none of that's true. I just grind. So many things have failed. It has not just been this trajectory of the business going upward and, the podcast doing awesome and all these things. It's never that, to be honest. It's not even that right now. Like, there are good times, there are bad times, there are problems, there are, successes and failures. All these things are happening all the time on the back end of these things. And you just have to learn to overcome them. And, it was, so going back, telling a little bit more about my story, transitioning out of the military, taking that full-time job. Well, that full-time job didn't provide any sort of health, medical insurance or anything. And at first I was like, well, whatever, we're going to figure out how to pay for it. And that was right around, when Obamacare was kicking in. So we thought that might be like not only mandatory, but something that would actually be helpful. And it wasn't at all. And so I had no way to, to support my family in that regard. And then once we started to look at how much it would actually cost to have health insurance and stuff, it really just wasn't something that was possible. So at that time, the AFSOC was reaching out to me, Air Force Special Operations Command, reaching out to me over and over on like a weekly basis saying, hey, we have a reserve slot open. We want you to be a reserve officer. And I just kept saying, no, not doing it, till eventually I found out how expensive health insurance was going to be, and the fact that we couldn't afford it at that time, and it just wasn't possible, and that my employer wasn't going to, and I could do an entire podcast about that job I had and how short-lived it was and the reasons being, but I'll kind of get to it. Anyway, I took that reserve position to get health insurance through the military. And what was really crazy about that was, so I'd been out not even a year yet, probably about 9 months, when I decided, okay, I'll take this reserve position because it's going to help a lot with health insurance. And so it was like October or something like that, it was September. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to take this position, but you're going to have all of everything done. Like you have to go serve a certain amount of days and do all this work and like training, shoot a gun, like all these kind of things that you have to do to stay active. And they're like, well, you're going to have to finish it before the fiscal year ends. And the military fiscal year ends in end of September. So beginning of October is a new fiscal year for them. And so I basically had to do all of my training, like I signed up one day, they got everything approved, and then boom, I had to go do all of that stuff. And so the Betterhumanology podcast, like I said, was still going on, recording episodes in my truck, recording episodes late at night, so on and so forth. And then I kept having this victim mentality. I didn't realize it this entire time. But this is where I really just hit a wall, is when I was on that annual tour. So I'm separated from my family for about a month to get all this stuff done, right? And so, and that's when, I really just realized that nobody's going to do, going back to that story, my dad's like, no one's going to let you do that. Nobody's going to do anything for me. I'm going to have to do everything myself, and anything I want, I'm going to have to go get it. And I had that mentality growing up with, and in college with school, with a lot of the things I did in ROTC, going after getting a pilot slot, which I did, all these things, physical stuff, athletic stuff. I had that mentality, but I didn't have that mentality in entrepreneurship. For some reason, I hadn't brought that version of myself to being an entrepreneur. Going back to, wasn't confident, thought these other people were gods, and I wasn't, so on and so forth. But then I finally just I was in my hotel room, and I just realized then and there, I was like, no one's going to tell you what books to read. No one's going to tell you how to build a business. No one's going to tell you what you have to do next. There is no guidance, and nobody has any of that. I had done enough interviews to talk to people. I had enough mentorship. I knew what was and was not possible, and it lit a fire up under me from that day that I was like, I just got to do this shit. I got to do it. And immediately started downloading. I mean, I can't tell you how many audiobooks I crushed in that time period. Because before I would read, but I'm talking a couple books per year. And I would listen to them on Audible during drives and stuff. But I was not I wasn't getting after it by any means or any stretch of the imagination. A couple books per year. How many books I crushed. I was getting somewhere because I had my family was separated from me, and all I had to do was work and work out, and the rest of my time was mine. And if you are in that position right now, if you're single or you're not in any sort of relationship or whatever, and you want to go all in, you can, because when you have a wife and kids and fitness and business and everything else, it gets a lot harder to fit that stuff in. And I find ways to do it now, but it's not as easy. You don't understand until maybe you have kids or get married or whatever stage of life you're in, but it is different. And I was basically living the single man's life, if you will, out of this hotel room on my first annual tour that year. And that's when I kind of hit a wall, realizing that, man, nothing's going to work itself out. Inner3 Fitness isn't just going to slowly grow into this business. Betterhumanology isn't just going to become an awesome podcast, by luck or fate or time. You're going to have to do all this. So, like I said, I went crazy. I was listening to about 5 books per week at that time. During that time period, I was crushing everything, and I just got this new level of motivation to be more disciplined and to really change who I was. And that's the biggest lesson learned I have gotten from this podcast. That is, something I want to foot stomp and make sure that you understand. And it's so true. This is kind of what Jim Rohn preaches, but I hadn't even listened to Jim Rohn yet when I kind of developed this idea of that. You have to make yourself better in every regard. You have to do that spiritually, mentally, physically, And in pursuit of making yourself better, everything else will get better. I wrote about this a while back, that whole story of becoming the wolf, right? And there's this long story that you could read from like National Geographic about how they had removed wolves from Yellowstone National Park, and that was a bad thing. There are all these problems, erosion, overpopulation of certain rodents, and all these other things. And then they reintroduced the wolves back, and the wolves fixed all these problems. Like the entire ecosystem, all the way down to they actually changed the flow and direction of rivers. And this had to do with, something with the ground and beavers and like all this craziness. Anyway, that's how much the effect they had was they weren't there to eat certain things. They weren't there to change the ecosystem. They were just being themselves. They were being the best versions of them that they could be, these wolves, and change their entire environment. And that's what I've basically learned about becoming better. If I want my business to be better and I want my business to grow, or if I want my relationships with my kids or my wife to be better and I want them to grow and get deeper, same spiritually, with my friends, all these different areas, financially, if I want those things to happen, it's not always a new marketing tactic. It's not a new relationship book. It's not a new financial course. Those things are helpful. Sometimes you need that knowledge if you just actually don't know what the hell you're doing and you need to learn. But for the most part, what I have learned, biggest lesson here, you just need to make yourself better. That is it. That is what you need to focus on. It pushes you in so many different directions. It gives you the motivation. It gives you the drive. It gives you the dedication. It gives you everything you need to achieve what you want. But it's so freaking hard for us to believe that. No one actually believes it. Going back to the mental stuff that I learned from the Betterhumanology podcast, if you don't believe the shit I'm telling you, you don't believe the shit the guests are saying, you don't believe any podcast, you're just going to be a skeptic your whole life. That earns you nothing. That earns you absolutely 100% nothing. That's another thing I've learned. Don't be a freaking skeptic. It doesn't get you anything. I'm so sick and tired of skeptics. People email me all the time. I hear it when people talk. Some people are proud. They're so proud of being skeptical about things. Like I'm a skeptic about everything. Yeah, well, stop doing that. Stop being a skeptic. By all means, protect yourself, protect your family, protect your finances. But for the most part, when you're skeptical about everything in your life, all you're doing is missing opportunity over and over and over again. You don't think that this new supplement works. You don't think that this works. You don't think that works. You don't think that this program is good because this guy just wants money. You think that that supplement company guy, he's just after your money, or so on and so forth. You're so skeptical about all these things, and it doesn't get you anywhere. I was that person. I was so skeptical about spending thousands of dollars on online business courses. I was so skeptical about diving into my own training, own programming, and it actually working out. I was so skeptical about so many things when I first started this podcast. All it did was slow me down. Slowed me down. Now, I would rather believe and trust in people, do my research, use my intelligence to make an informed decision, but for the most part, trust people, and things have worked out so much better when I decided to do that. So much better. So don't be skeptical, believe in yourself, and get after it. And that's exactly what I did. Like I said, I was sitting in that hotel room. I just really got after it. And to me, that's when Betterhumanology for Jared Moon really, really started. And to be honest, it's been going on ever since, but it's for 100% honesty, like it goes in lulls. Like sometimes I'm crushing books and making sure all my training sessions are happening. And then sometimes my training slips. I can only get in a partial session here. I haven't read a book in several weeks. There are highs and lows to this entire journey. We all have different things going on in life, and some things can just crush you. And I've been there over the part of this podcast. I don't always share any of the bad things or maybe health issues that are going on with people in my family, things like that, but they're all there. It hasn't been sunshine and rainbows for me this entire podcast, and I've learned, it's never going to be that way. So once I learned that we have to make ourselves better for everything else to work, and this is something I still have to keep reminding myself. It's something I truly believe and I am bought into, But even then, sometimes it's hard. If I'm like, no, I really need to focus on the business right now. We need to grow this area. We need to do this. Sometimes I just want to sit down and do that and not do anything else. I don't want to train. I want to get laser focused on that one goal. This can happen in different areas of my life. And sometimes I feel like until that goal is achieved, I don't deserve to do anything else. This is, kind of my mental struggle that I have. And then I always have to remove myself and bring myself back out, all the way, zoom out to that time frame in my life when that was going on. Like, okay, no, you need to just make yourself better. You need to read more books. You need to train, make sure you're getting your training in, be disciplined, get your morning routine. You just need to do those things each and every single day. Make yourself better. Do anything that makes you feel like you are getting better. However small that might be, you need to continually to push yourself to get better. And I promise you, if you do that over a long enough timeline, everything else in your life is going to get better. Your relationships, your business, or your job, everything is going to get better if you just improve yourself. Make yourself smarter, make yourself better, give yourself more skills. Just focus on yourself. Now, I've talked about this martyr mentality before. You can't be a martyr. You can't be a mom martyr, a dad martyr, whatever you want to do. You can't be a martyr. And what I mean by that is, I'm not going to make myself better. I'm not going to exercise. I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z because I need to do this for my kids. I'm doing this for my kids. I'm making all these sacrifices for my kids or for my job or for my life or for this and for that. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. You do not need to sacrifice yourself to help others. You need to help yourself first. Like the oxygen mask in an airplane, when they drop down, they don't say, hey, make sure you strap that sucker on your kid first. No. Put your own mask on, take care of yourself first, then give them the mask. Then you can help them out. Because if you're dead or unconscious or not getting any better, the rest of the people next to you or who are, dependent on you, they're going to suck, fall down, and chances are you're all going to end up getting worse off anyway. Don't do that. Don't be a skeptic. Don't be a martyr. Make yourself better. So again, these are just some of the lessons I've learned, guys, from a very big picture overview. And the last thing I really wanted to share, and this is kind of like, call it an epiphany, if you will. What's the ultimate success habit? What's the ultimate habit that we can cultivate to make ourselves better? Because I've been looking for an answer to that, and I don't know if this is the answer, but this is the closest that I've gotten from basically everything. Taking all 200 plus interviews, reading 200 plus books, everything that I've done since I started this podcast to make myself better. What is the ultimate success habit that we can cultivate that will improve our lives? I could say it's discipline. To some degree, that's true. If you could have, my new definition of mental toughness is daily discipline over decades. Daily discipline over decades. That's mental toughness. But is it just discipline? I don't think so. I think the true thing that you need to do to make yourself better is the true success habit is controlling your thoughts. I'll say it one more time, controlling your thoughts. I could spin that around. I could give it a fancier name. I could, put a label on it or something, but I'm actually talking about just controlling your thoughts, which is something that's near impossible to do. So you see that person on Instagram that makes you jealous. You have self-doubt or fear. You talk yourself out of things. You're negative. All these things that we have going on in our brain. There's nothing wrong with you because you have those thoughts. It's called the human condition. It's part of who we are as human beings. But a lot of times, we are not in control of our thoughts. Yes, we could sit down and think about something or concentrate, but for the most part, when you're just running around during a day, and I'm not talking about cell phone or social media, I'm just talking about when you're running around a day, your thoughts are doing whatever the hell they want to do, constantly. You're not thinking about the goals that you have, what you want to achieve. You're not thinking about how you could be better. You're not controlling positive thoughts that will encourage you, push you forward. You're just kind of letting things happen inside your brain constantly. I do the same thing. I've done the same thing. This is probably the hardest habit to cultivate that takes discipline, which I said very important. But if you can control your thoughts, whether that's to think more positively, whether that's to concentrate on your goals for 5 minutes in the morning, But if you can actually be in more control of your thoughts and your thought process, I truly believe you can achieve anything you want. And this is probably the hardest habit to develop, like I said, to cultivate. It takes a lot of work. But that is what, one of the big things I've learned in doing this podcast is if you can control your thoughts, because there have been times where I've been spot on with this and my life was about as perfect as I could ask for in being human. But then there are times I let it spiral out of control and I feel depressed or I feel irritated or agitated or frustrated. But when I am on top of it mentally, because that's all that matters, guys. It doesn't matter who's more successful online. It doesn't matter who's stronger, who's fitter, who makes more money. None of that really matters. All that matters is your perception of your day-to-day life. Are you happy in what you're doing? Are you happy with the impact you make, the money you make, your fitness level, your relationships? Are you happy? If you're happy with all of that stuff, but other people make more, are faster, fitter, or have better relationships, but that's not you. If you're just happy in your daily life and you're controlling those thoughts to think about all that you have, that's why people are saying, gratitude is a good practice, but I don't think it's just gratitude. I don't think you wake up and you write 3 things that you're thankful for is going to change your life. I really don't think so. I've tried it. But actually controlling your thoughts for long periods of time, which takes things like some sort of gratitude practice over time, also some sort of meditation practice. It takes all these things. It takes so many different tools and resources to try and actually get to a point where you can control your thoughts on a daily basis, and you're not going to be able to control them every minute of the day. Our brains weren't designed that way. It takes a lot of different things we've discussed in the podcast, guests we've had on all these different things. It takes a lot to be able to get there. But that's the epiphany I've kind of realized. If you can control your thoughts, all this other stuff is easier, guys. Discipline gets easier. You have more drive and motivation to stick to habits. You're happier. What else are we here for? You're happier. You're content. You're satisfied. Very hard thing for people to achieve. I don't know many who are actually there. And, moving forward in this podcast, what do I plan to do from here? I don't know yet. Here's what I do know. I know in 2019, Garage Gym Athlete is going to take more of a role. We have the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. That is going to be more of my fitness and nutrition outlet moving forward. Right now, we're interviewing a lot of athletes. We will continue to do that in the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe to it. But we're going to be doing that. I know I want to write some books in 2019. Maybe 1, maybe 2. I have some material that I want to really get back to writing. Becoming a CEO or running this business full time has really taken me away from writing. I want to get back to writing, but not just blog posts or articles. I want to write some books, and I'm gonna be doing that. And I know I'll probably be sharing that process here on this podcast in 2019. And once I have more of a clear, concrete direction of where we're headed, we're still going to be bringing awesome stuff to make you better, make me better. But the plan from here is to kind of focus more fitness, nutrition stuff at Garage Gym Athlete podcast. This is going to be focused more self-help, making you better. And like I said, there's a strong possibility in 2019 there'll be some sort of entrepreneurship side hustle podcast coming out from me. Wouldn't be a lot of... There'd be some interviews on it, but it'd probably be a lot of shorter duration, more frequent podcasts with tips, tricks that I've learned, how I've actually changed my mindset in a business setting, what we're doing in business that has worked, hasn't worked, things like that, because I found out there are a lot of you interested in, developing your own side hustle and possibly taking it beyond that. So that's probably going to happen. Like I said, I'm going to write some books. And I'm going to read a lot of books. So I might be sharing the book writing and reading stuff here on the podcast, of course, with more interviews bringing to you in 2019. And I'll have more information on that as we go along. Now, it's been a lot of fun doing this podcast, hearing from many of you how you've got better, how you've transformed yourself. And I did want to give one little update before I kind of sign off here. So I set a goal, if you guys remember, a few years ago, to help 10,000 humans get better. And to be honest, that's what's really pushed me forward, because I'm not actually super motivated by money. There's a certain amount of money the business needs to support payroll, to support my family, that kind of stuff. Like not dying, not failing, that kind of, I'm very motivated by money, but beyond a certain point, I don't get super motivated by money. So that's why I changed that goal in 2016 to helping 10,000 human beings get better. And that, will result in customers. It does result in business growth. It does result in a lot of things. But we have that survey on our website. It's in the members area. It has Into3 Fitness helped you get better? Has this podcast have any way, shape, or form, have we helped you get better, stronger, faster, smarter, fitter, anything like that? Have we helped you do that? Have we helped you become a better human being? And it's just been by survey. One person at a time we've been asking. We used to email it out. Now it's just in there for everyone you can vote yes or no. And we are nearing 8,000 human beings who've said that they have gotten better through the use of some resource or something that we're doing has made them better. And that's huge, guys. That motivates me. That pushes me forward. That pushes me to keep doing what we're doing. And I know for a fact that we're going to hit 10,000 next year. And there's going to be something coming from that. We're going to have to celebrate that in a major way. But we're getting really close. We're really close, like I said, to 8,000 right now. There's no way in hell we don't hit 10,000 probably pretty soon in 2019. And I'm just super excited, super pumped, if you will, to share that journey with you guys. More about that. If you're one of those 10,000 who's filled out the survey, I appreciate it. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I appreciate you listening to this one specifically as I rambled on, for a little while. But hopefully you've learned something. I wanted to sit down and distill everything I've learned from every guest and all that, but it's not. It's really these big picture things that have pushed me forward. We've learned about macronutrients, and we've learned about ketosis, and we've learned about different fitness hacks and all this stuff, man. But really it comes down to discipline, controlling your thoughts, making yourself better, pushing yourself forward where everything else in your life gets better. And I think that's a good lesson for me to reflect on. And I think that's a good recap of everything really I've learned so far. I'm sure there's more if I sat down and gave it more time, but that's where I'm at right now. If you guys have any questions, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, whether that be on Instagram, I'm at EO3Fit, or you can email me from the website, into3fitness.com. For all the athletes out there doing Garage Gym athlete training, thousands of you now, I appreciate you more than you know. And I want to let you know that we have some majorly awesome stuff coming in 2019. Like this podcast, in our training, we will not remain stagnant. We will push forward. We will make things better. We will improve with new resources and opportunities. And that's all I'm going to say for now. I look forward to continuing this podcast, guys. More information on what 2019 is going to look like coming soon. That's all I have for today.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.